As analysed previously on this channel, Soul Survivor founder Mike Pilavachi stepped down from ministry in 2023 after complaints of inappropriate behaviour were made and later upheld by the Church of England's National Safeguarding Team. Subsequently, Soul Survivor Watford commissioned an independent review of its culture and governance, which would also provide Pilavachi an opportunity to respond to allegations. This review was finally published in September 2024, and in this video, we will focus on 3 findings and look at responses from victims. To briefly recap this story, Mike Pilavachi, best known for founding Soul Survivor Watford and its associated festivals, stood down from ministry in April 2023 after several complaints of inappropriate behaviour were made to the Church of England's National Safeguarding Team, or NST. This behaviour was revealed the following month to include ghosting and private massages of young male interns after several victims anonymously spoke to the Daily Telegraph. The NST's subsequent investigation, although not made publicly available, substantiated the claims against Pilavachi, with Soul Survivor Watford releasing a statement apologising shortly after. For a more in-depth analysis of the background to and initial fallout from this scandal, you can watch this previous video, the link to which is in the description. In this statement, its head of trustees, David Mitchell, announced that Soul Survivor had commissioned a second investigation.
We are committed to learning lessons from what has happened and to put in place further practices and procedures that will seek to ensure this kind of behaviour does not happen in this church in the future. To that end, we have commissioned Fiona Scolding King's Counsel to lead a full and independent review. The terms of reference of her review will be published in the coming weeks, and the written report of her review will be published in full.
In addition to being independent from the Church of England, its terms of reference set out that it would focus not only on the conduct of Pilavachi, but also whether the conduct was tacitly or explicitly enabled, condoned, or exasperated by the past and present culture and practices of Soul Survivor and those who had oversight of Soul Survivor in respect of their governance. They further set out that Mike Pilavachi would have a full and informed opportunity to respond to the allegations, which he had declined to do so previously since resigning in June 2023. Despite these terms of reference, it was reported by the Daily Telegraph that some victims feared the report would throw Pilavachi under the bus, but failed to hold those in the church who may have enabled his behaviour to account. Concerns were also shared by some clergy in the Church of England, with proposals for a separate investigation into Soul Survivor presented at General Synod. However, the Bishop of the Diocese of St Albans, in which Soul Survivor Watford is situated, agreed to give Scolding further time to complete her review and assured Synod of his confidence in it.
Although I fully understand why many Synod members want to hold this debate, I believe the timing is far from ideal. We've yet to receive the independent report by Fiona Scolding KC, and having been interviewed by her at length, I have no doubt at all that she will be fully independent.
In September 2024, the review was finally published on Soul Survivor Watford's website, and in this video, we will focus on 3 important findings. Firstly, allegations of inappropriate behaviour by Mike Pilavachi were substantiated. This included those behaviours first substantiated by the NST investigation, most prominently that of ghosting and private massages of young male interns. Concerning the former, the review states that a consistent theme of complaints about Mr. Pilavachi from the 1980s to the present day was the befriending of young men at Christian events, developing very intimate and close relationships which would then ultimately sour because of Mr. Pilavachi's behaviour. This included not speaking to them at all for long periods or even acknowledging them in meetings. Reflecting on these accounts, the reviewers go on to state, "We would go as far as to say that it was this behaviour, above any of the others described in this report, that appears to have been the most harmful." And regarding the latter, the review similarly describes the accounts as remarkably consistent, with shared characteristics such as lying on Mr. Pilavachi's sofa, his floor, or his bed, and in their underwear with a towel over them. It further notes that 2 people believe the massages were sexually motivated. The reviewers concluded that, at the very least, Mr. Pilavachi's massaging of these young men represented a significant abuse of power for which naivety, if that is what it was, is no excuse at all. Secondly, organisational failings by both Soul Survivor Watford and the Church of England were revealed. Regarding the former, the review describes there being a wholesale failure to inculcate both a culture where there could be open and honest raising of concerns and also where there was no fear that raising concerns could cause detriment. It noted that staff considered that there were no clear lines of reporting or accountability, and many did not feel able to speak with trustees or even know who the trustees were. A notable example of how the aforementioned culture was not impressed was how on many occasions Mr. Pilavachi was asked to chair trustee meetings. Concerning this, the review states that this was wrong. Mr. Pilavachi was supposed to be accountable to the trustees, and so he should not have been permitted to chair trustee meetings. This created the wrong impression and prevented proper scrutiny. This practice led to instances where Pilavachi's behaviour was reported but nothing was done, such as with the complaints made in 2004 by Tim and Pete Hughes, with the reviewers stating that it is our view that the trustees of the ministries failed the church and the ministries when they did not deal adequately with the complaints. And concerning the latter, the review states that because Soul Survivor did not originate from a diocesan initiative, for nearly 20 years, the church, which probably had the largest congregation in the Diocese of St. Albans, had no accountability to that diocese in any formal legal sense. This meant, it continues, it did not have access to any formal oversight, nor did it have access to the human resources and, most importantly, safeguarding advice which would have been in place. The review further highlights that even when the church became a bishop's mission order, which therefore meant it was required to follow the House of Bishops' safeguarding advice, measures set out in the BMO Code of Practice did not seem to have been followed in Soul Survivor's case. It also draws attention to Mike Pilavachi's ordination in 2012 and the confirmation from the diocese that Mike Pilavachi did not undertake all the relevant training and oversight that usually accompanies the ordination process. The reviewers highlight that this meant Pilavachi did not undergo a bishop's advisory panel, in which prospective ordinands have to have references from the incumbent of the church where they worship, lay people, and employers. It is possible, they go on to say, that those from lay people from the church and all the trustees may have shone some light onto those sides of Mr. Pilavachi's character which have given rise to this review. And thirdly, Mike Pilavachi publicly commented on allegations made against him for the first time. Prior to Scolding's investigation, Pilavachi had opted not to comment, stating in an Instagram post he wanted to avoid trial by media or social media. Concerning the claims of ghosting, Pilavachi denied some of the specific allegations put to him. However, he accepted that too many people have commented on this behaviour for there not to be some truth in it. The reviewers go on to say that, by way of explanation, but he was keen to stress, not excuse, Mr. Pilavachi told us that he felt like a pretty broken person at times, so he would often deal with stress or difficult situations by withdrawing, and, as a result of his ministry commitments, he was sometimes too busy to maintain intense relationships with people for long periods of time. And regarding the allegations of massaging young male interns at his house, the review states that Mr. Pilavachi does not deny that he carried out massages, but strenuously denies touching anyone inappropriately or deriving any sexual satisfaction from them. Of additional note, Pilavachi was also critical of the NST investigation into his behaviour, claiming that the Church of England's attitude to the allegations against him changed markedly from the point at which they reached the public domain and the press, and that the NST's questioning of him had been hostile and aggressive. The reviewers note that these concerns have been echoed by some of the other people to whom we have spoken. Following its publication, there was a mixed response to the review's findings and recommendations from victims of Pilavachi's abuse, with some feeling it was incomplete. In a joint statement posted online by their lawyer, Richard Scorer, 15 victims, while commending Scolding for doing her best within the limitations imposed on her, stated that the report leaves some issues unexplored and some questions unanswered. They point out that the NST did not share all information it had to the reviewers. So, in their words, so much of the picture remains hidden. They furthermore questioned how Soul Survivor would be able to reform itself when the people leading it now were also in leadership roles during the years of Pilavachi's abuse, and say that the review fails to provide answers in relation to this. Others were more positive about the review, such as worship artist Matt Redman, who detailed the abuse he received from Pilavachi in his documentary Let There Be Light. While acknowledging that it would not answer all of the questions or heal all the wounds, Redman stated that nonetheless the review was a step in the right direction, as it sought to bring light to how Pilavachi's behaviour went unchallenged for decades. Thank you for watching. Do not forget to like and comment on the video, and to stay up to date with Evangelical Analysis, be sure to subscribe.